Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gino, LaMont.
And I'm Elizabeth Beaubien. We have the very latest on a 4.7 earthquake that struck the Anza area shortly before 10 o'clock this morning. Anza is just 35 minutes south of the desert.
The initial quake was followed in rapid succession by a swarm or a cluster of aftershocks in the Anza area and felt, of course, all the way down here to the valley from La Quinta to Cathedral City. Those aftershocks were felt a full 90 minutes after the initial quake.
A lot of shaking. CAL FIRE has asked us to reiterate that there has been no reports of any damage and no injuries to report either. The quake itself was felt from the Mexican border all the way to parts of LA and San Diego.
Now, we have spoken to all the local school districts, and many schools themselves have sent out email blasts to parents of students. And we have been told by everyone that standard earthquake protocol was in place. The initial duck and cover, followed by a calm and temporary evacuation of the buildings. Inspections were followed by school officials, and then classes resumed. Again, no injuries, no damages reported.
We've also spoken with the tournament officials out at the BNP Paribas, the Indian Wells Tennis Garden. Tournament play will go on as scheduled today. All
right, joining us on the phone is seismologist Dr. Susan Ho. Doctor, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there. Can you hear us?
I can. I've got a squeaky noise on the line.
Okay. If you could just describe today's earthquake for us.
Okay, well, as you said, it was a magnitude 4.7. It was actually preceded by what we call foreshocks. There was a 2.7 that was about 20 minutes before, and then there was a 2.3 that was less than a minute before. And the second foreshock actually made it difficult for the systems to locate the big earthquake. The system gets confused, and for a while there were 4 different earthquakes that were located, but obviously there was just one magnitude 4.7. It was, as you know, widely felt in the Coachella Valley. You actually said something very interesting, that aftershocks were felt in the area for some time.
Yeah, the last report we got was 11:22, I believe, a small aftershock, less than 2.5, that was felt in La Quinta. Are you guys seeing reports of aftershocks this far after the quake itself, or are those separate incidents?
Okay, well, there is a 2.8 that was located at 11:25, and that might have been felt, but the system has not located any aftershocks within the first 30 minutes. But it sounds like people did feel smaller events after the main one.
How severe is a 4.7 magnitude earthquake?
Well, it's a pretty good jolt if you're close to it. It's obviously not a major earthquake that's going to cause, that we expect to cause damage. But if you're close to it, you're going to feel, a good shake. It's going to get your attention.
And we have heard that this was associated not with the San Andreas fault, which of course lies right through the center of our valley, but with the San Jacinto fault line. Is that correct?
It actually looks like it's off the main San Jacinto fault, but it's very close to it. So yes, it's not on the San Andreas. It's close to the San Jacinto. It may be on one of the secondary faults that branches off of the San Jacinto. It's going to take a little while to look at the data in more detail.
Is that significant in any way, which fault line it's coming off of?
It does appear that magnitude 4.7 that was right on the San Andreas might be a little bit more dangerous, because that could be a foreshock to a big quake on the San Andreas. Whereas this one looks like it was off the main fault, so maybe it's a little less likely to be a foreshock to something major.
And is this something that we should be worried about? I know you're saying that it may not be a forewarning of something bigger to come. Is this something that the plates just do on their own to stabilize themselves?
Well, we get earthquakes this size that sort of pop off, around the state. It's not that uncommon. In any earthquake in California, there is about a 5% chance of something bigger happening within 3 days. So it is a good heads up that something else, once you feel an earthquake, the odds do go up that something else could happen.
Well, then we should be on alert, is what you're saying, and be prepared. I guess that is something to be said at any moment.
Yeah. So any earthquake like this is a heads up for people.
Now, they've been putting sensors along the San Andreas Fault for a few years now. Was there any forewarning sent to the USGS from these sensors, or did we have any idea that this was happening thanks to new technology?
Well, there is an early warning prototype that's in testing mode. It's not, putting out alerts at this point. And this earthquake actually, it's a good test case for that system. The system's not ready for prime time, basically. But it will give data that'll be useful to help develop and test the system.
You say it's not ready for prime time. Any idea when it will be ready?
That's a good question. It's a hard problem. We don't want to, so the system detected an earthquake, but you don't want to be giving people warnings for every 4.5, and you don't want to be giving people false alarms, and that's the tricky problem. So people are working very hard at making sure the system is going to be reliable, but not scaring us to death for no reason.
What was it about this earthquake that made it so, the shaking so widespread and so many people felt it, or is this normal for a 4.7?
Well, it was a fairly, well, not big earthquake, but it was a good-sized earthquake. It was fairly close to Palm Springs, and I looked, the last earthquake that was this big and this far north in Southern California was way back in 2010, in July. So most of the big earthquakes since then, moderate earthquakes, have been down at the border. So, the magnitude was 4.7. It was fairly close to you, and those are the two main factors. It was relatively deep as earthquakes in California go. It was about 8 miles deep instead of about 5. And sometimes that makes an earthquake more of a sharp jolt than kind of a more gentle rumbling. So that could have had something to do with it. But the location in the Palm Springs area would have been the main factor.
And one last question for you, Doctor. You mentioned that if this were off a main fault line, it could be a 4 quake or something that is setting up a larger quake, but because this is on one of the smaller veins off a main quake, off a main fault, that it's more likely a single event. Any way of knowing which one it is at this point?
Okay, I didn't hear that entirely, and I hope I didn't confuse people. Any earthquake in California can be a foreshock. So this one is, there is a 5% chance or so that something bigger will happen within 3 days. We think that an earthquake this size, that if it were right on the San Andreas, it has a somewhat higher chance of being a foreshock. So it's not like some earthquakes are dangerous and others aren't. It's just a matter of degree. So people should be on their toes anytime they feel an earthquake like this.
And you say it could be a forewarning of something bigger. What does bigger mean? How big could big be?
Yeah, well, there's about a 5% chance of something bigger than a 4.7 in the next 3 days. But if you ask what's the chance of something bigger than a 5.7 in the next 3 days, it's a less than 1% chance. So it's not, it's not a really bad sign that, something bigger will happen. It's a low probability, but it's bigger than 0.
All right, USGS seismologist Dr. Susan Ho. Thank you so much for your time and expertise, Doctor.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Battalion Chief Rick Griggs, who, of course, was in his station at the time of the earthquake, and he's got the very latest for us and what you can do to protect you and your family. We'll be right back.
Have you been in an accident? Ouch! Call Walter Clark. Call Walter Clark. Call Walter Clark. Don't worry. He fights for you. Call today. It won't cost you a dime. Until he wins. Call 760-777-7777.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ken Jesser. If you have ugly spider or varicose veins, call me. Eliminating veins is what I do, and I've been doing it for over 10 years. We have the latest equipment and techniques. It's non-surgical with typically no downtime. The worse your veins, the better the result. Call the Vein Specialist Institute at 341-7563. Get instant results.
My varicose veins bothered me for 30 years, and I am thrilled with the results.
Don't waste another minute to look great. I personally do every procedure. 341-7563.
At Tockwitz Creek Golf Resort, we love the game of golf. Tockwitz Creek is famous for the all-inclusive golf experience, where loyalty golfers' green fees include both an elaborate breakfast and lunch, as well as 2 ice-cold draft beers. Tockwitz Creek Golf Resort is the #1 local favorite because we understand what's most important to you. Great greens, a fast pace of play, and a fun, friendly atmosphere. Check out our valuable membership programs like our Players Club at TockwitzzGolfResort.com. Tockwitz Creek, the best golf value in the Valley.
A lot of my pains come from a lot of repetition because I work out all the time. I was running and doing all sorts of exercises in sometimes bad form, bad technique. I was always having Achilles tendonitis, I was always having plantar fasciitis, and then when I started wearing the arch supports from Good Feet, it really helped realign my hips and realign my gait, and I eliminated pain by wearing the Good Feet arch supports.
In Palm Desert, call 760-837-9400.
And welcome back. We've got the very latest on that 4.7 earthquake that struck the Anza area shortly before 10 o'clock today. Right here, you're looking at some surveillance video sent in to us by a viewer. That quake, you can see the rattling there at the beginning of the video. It was shot from the Palm Desert area. Right there, you can see the intense jolting that was felt throughout the valley and also throughout Southern California today.
Yeah, and as Dr. Ho mentioned, it was fairly deep, which is why it felt more jolting versus rolling. Joining us now is Battalion Chief Rick Griggs from the Palm Desert Station. First of all, Chief, thanks so much for being here.
No problem, Gino.
Tell me about what happens, because obviously you guys were in the station house. Tell us what happened this morning.
We actually have an earthquake monitoring system that gave us about 5 seconds head start on the earthquake. It alarms sound, all the doors open for the fire station, and all our personnel basically assumed the duck cover and hold position once they felt substantial shaking. However, it was real short and over very quickly, so they all returned basically back to that. Immediately after that, we remove all fire apparatus from the inside of the bays so that it's not trapped inside the bays if there was damage to the station.
And did you get a lot of calls coming in, people worried, people?
We did get some 911 calls. We had kind of several 911 calls afterwards. People call letting us know that there was an earthquake.
As if you didn't know.
Yeah. However, it's real important that we remind the public that they're prepared all the time.
Right.
We're in California. We're not, as you said earlier, we're very close to San Andreas Fault, the site of a very major, potentially a major quake.
Remind us, what do we need to do to be prepared? What do we need to have on hand?
One of the biggest things that we have to do is remind people that having preparations for your family, including your pets, that means having medications on hand, having food supplies. It could be 24, 36, 72 hours till people arrive to support, to help you. Especially in the case of a significant earthquake, emergency services are going to be stretched very thin. So on our website at rvcfire.org, we have an earthquake preparedness kit that you can basically put in a garbage can, and that'll help your family survive for up to 72 hours until help can get there.
Is that really the window? Because we've done reports that said if it's really bad and the 10 freeway snaps in a couple of spots, which is likely in a significant quake, and now we're talking big, 7 or above, that it could be at the very minimum 3 days, but quite possibly as much as a week or even more before they can get to us.
Absolutely. That's why the preparations are so important. We have additional resources. Like I said, our emergency services, the professional emergency services will be stretched very thin. However, there's our citizens emergency response teams, which are built up around neighborhoods and communities. Most of our cities within the valley are running a CERT program or a community emergency response team program. Excellent for neighborhoods to bond together to help care and assist other injured people to take care of issues. Some of the other really important things we need to remind the public is know where your gas meter is, know how to turn off your gas. But that doesn't mean run out and turn your gas off at the first sign of an earthquake. If you smell gas, then it's time to turn it off. However, we don't want them running out and just turning it off. That's going to create extra workload on the gas company and us.
Right. And that kind of goes back to the whole thing with like no candles, use flashlights if this should happen at night or if the outage lasts into the dark hours, keeping gas in your gas tanks. I mean, there's a lot of steps that you can take that will at least minimize the impact of a prolonged outage or shortage in the wake of an earthquake.
Absolutely. And if power is disrupted, phone service is going to be disrupted. If children are at school, like we talked about the school districts previously, one of the most important things is a means to set up communication and to get families reunited with each other, because the families are going to have to lean on each other to take care of themselves.
This was a pretty good reminder today that we do live in earthquake country. How much water do we need to have on hand if the huge disaster was to happen?
Again, all that information is on our earthquake site, on the department's website. But it's critical to have the water. That's one of the most important things we can have, especially out here. Consider how dependent we become on the air conditioning, and being in the air conditioning in the heat of the summer. If we were to have that, the water usage even in the Coachella Valley is going to be much more significant for a family to have.
Go back to what you talked about this morning. Now, you guys do have an early warning system in place. Now, it's only a few seconds, but that could be the difference in getting the doors up and not?
Correct. If the earthquake were to cause the building to shift, the doors may not be able to come up. Now, we have alternate plans to do that, but they're a little bit destructive.
Right.
What we need to do, though, is it warns us to be able to get a little bit better position and get the doors open, get the equipment out on the road. As you drive by the fire stations in the entire valley today, you'll notice that most of the fire apparatus are either parked out in front or parked in the back of the station. There won't be anything inside until we get a good all clear signal from the USGS.
How long will is standard procedure for a quake of this size?
There's really no standard. It really depends on the volume of aftershocks following the quakes and how it's dealt with and the significance of it.
Right. Anyone that's in kind of a panic mode today, I know this earthquake freaked a few people out. I'm from Oklahoma. I'm not even used to these kinds of things. So what would you tell them to kind of ease their concerns that they are going to be okay?
All of our resources immediately after the earthquake, after they check the fire station to make sure that there are no significant hazards there that could cause damage to our facility, because that may become a community collection point. People may go to the fire station, so we need those facilities as secure as possible. Our fire resources actually went out and did what we call a windshield survey, drove through their entire area, checked to see if there was any obvious damage or anything of that may need people that may need assistance that can't communicate via normal means. Phone lines are disrupted or anything like that. We'll report that back in and we'll start to prioritize our operations. The most important thing, though, again, is be prepared for these earthquakes. They happen. We always seem to be surprised when they happen, but we live in Southern California and it is earthquake country.
And tell us that website one more time.
It is rvcfire, FIRE.org.
Right.
Okay.
Now, when you talk about preparedness, and certainly, let's be honest, most people's lack of it, how quickly are we talking about running out of water, and people will be headed for their pools trying to drink chlorinated water? If it gets bad fast, and if it happens in the summer, are people unrealistic about the quantity of food and water they're going to need?
Many people are unrealistic. However, there are many people that are very well prepared. So what it takes is everybody as a community, as individuals, to be prepared. Teach your children to be prepared. Always have that stuff ready. Even in the case of just nightly going to bed, know where a good sturdy pair of shoes are to put on. Know where your clothes are. Know how to get out of your house an alternate way from just the front door. That's just common sense emergency preparedness. We don't want to have people running around. There will be broken glass. If you don't have shoes to put on, something sturdy, you may have a difficult time getting through and cause more injuries to yourself.
And let me ask you, what should you do when an earthquake begins? Do you run outside? Do you get into a door? Do you get under a table? What do you do?
We fall back on the old standard of duck, cover, and hold. Find the sturdy object, go underneath the object, and wait until the shaking stops. Then it's time to move outside. And as you're moving outside, look for hazards, look for things that could fall on your head, and get away from the buildings.
Right. Talk to me about power lines. One, especially in the older parts of town where the power lines aren't underneath the ground, because the great thing about the desert is much of the town is new and the power lines are buried. But in those older areas where power lines will come down, can you drive over them if you were trying to escape? Should you just?
We recommend you avoid them at all possible, at all costs. Right. However, if it's the only way you can get out of a dangerous area, it may be something you have to do. But we avoid the power lines. That's one of the most critical things. Those down lines, even if you question whether it's a power line, a telephone line, a cable TV line, don't make contact with it. Notify the authorities by calling 911.
All right. Okay. All right. Battalion Chief Rick Griggs, thank you so much for coming in on such short notice. We really appreciate it. And lastly, what's the best thing people can do to help the fire department, help them in the aftermath of a quake?
We're very understanding that there was an earthquake. We know that it's occurred. The biggest thing is if you can take care of yourself for a little while, if there's not an immediate emergency that's a danger to your life or your health, the building's not on fire, we will get to you. We will handle the emergencies as they come. However, inundating the 911 system to tell us that there has been an earthquake is probably not necessary.
It's not helping. All right,
that's
Chief.
for sure. We all know what happened.
That's right. All right. Thank you so much, Chief. Really appreciate it. And if you'd like to share your stories, give us a call or email the newsroom.
That's right. Phone number is 340-1623. You can also reach us at news@KMIR6.com. Right now, we're going to stay on top of this earthquake coverage for you today. We're going to go to a break, and we'll be back right after that.
Electricity. Do you buy it or produce it? Buying it costs money. Producing it saves money. A lot of money. Hot Purple Energy is your solution. We help you turn sunlight into electricity to save money every day. And with zero down, you can save from the first sunrise. Converting your home to solar is easy. Let Hot Purple Energy show you how with our industry-leading installations and satisfaction guarantee. Find out why our clients become our fans. Hot Purple Energy. Solar evolved.
Tonight, it's the last Biggest Loser before the finale.
Push it!
The last challenge.
Ah.
The last workout.
Come on, Danny!
And the last shocking weigh-in. New Biggest Loser, tonight, 8/7 Central, here on NBC.
For 15 years, there's been only darkness.
I can turn the lights back on.
On March 25th, they'll take back the power, but one won't make it out alive. New Revolution, after the premiere of The Voice, March 25th, here on NBC.
The most exciting, delicious breakfast is at Manhattan in the Desert. In addition to all the traditional favorites, we now introduce our fabulous new breakfast menu. Blueberry cheesecake French toast, cinnamon swirl pancakes, Manhattan super fluffy omelet, great new breakfast sandwiches, caramelized banana French toast, and many, many more. Created by renowned chef David Chai. Come to Manhattan in the Desert for the most delectable breakfast you'll ever have. On Palm Canyon in Palm Springs, just east of Farrell.
I know I need to quit this.
Well, how about...
that Smokers Helpline? Yeah, they could give me a plan. Help me through the rough spots.
So you're ready to...
Quit? Everyone wants me to quit. My doctor, my wife, the dog. Not good for the dog.
Anyone else?
What?
Anyone else wants you to quit?
Me. I want me to quit.
Smokers Helpline.
Oh, hi. It's me.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Gino LaMont alongside Elizabeth Beaubien, continuing our earthquake coverage this afternoon.
You may have felt it. Most likely you did. A 4.7 earthquake that struck the Anza area shortly before 10 o'clock this morning. Anza is just about 35 minutes south of the desert if you go up Highway 74 there. This earthquake was felt all the way from the U.S.-Mexico border throughout Southern California. Again, it was a 4.7 earthquake.
Now, that initial quake was followed in rapid succession by a swarm or cluster of aftershocks in the Anza area. That was felt throughout Southern California, and as we learned from Dr. Susan Ho of the USGS, she told us that initially it was hard to tell if it was one big quake, at least at the USGS headquarters, or if it was a cluster of smaller shakes. And as we've learned now, it was a big one with several in rapid succession, right after the initial quake, smaller aftershocks that initially looked on the computer like one big quake.
And this wasn't one of those rolling quakes either. This was a good jolt, a good shock, very much a rattler of sorts. CAL FIRE has asked us to reiterate that there has been no reports of any damage or injuries because of the earthquake. Yeah. The quake itself, again, was felt all the way from the Mexican border through parts of LA and San Diego, Orange County, and certainly here in the Coachella Valley.
Yeah, and we've spoken to all the local school districts and many of the schools individually themselves, and we are learning that email blasts are sent out immediately to parents of students from individual schools. And we're told that standard earthquake protocol was in place. So initially, if your child's in school, they were told to duck and cover, which they do drills on all the time. They then calmly evacuate the building, and school officials go around checking for cracks, broken glass, major sort of structural damage. When all that's checked out, they send the kids back into class, and we're told now that classes resumed within 10 minutes of the initial quake. And again, from the schools, no reports of any injuries or damages.
And if you're headed out to the tennis tournament today, we've spoken with the officials at the BNP. They said tournament play will go on as scheduled today. No interruption there because of the earthquake. Also, if you're just joining us, we had just spoken with the Battalion Chief Griggs from the Palm Desert Fire Station, not too far from our KMIR6 studios. He wanted to reiterate a website for anyone that is worried or concerned, rvcfire.org. That's at the bottom of your screen right there. You can log on to that website, find out disaster preparedness us tips what you need to have in case there is an even bigger earthquake to come.
Now, Chief Griggs did tell us that they would keep the fire engines and all the apparatus out of the station houses until they're given the all clear by the USGS. And as Dr. Ho told us, that could be as much as 3 days, as they are looking at a potential of this being a foreshock versus just a single quake event itself. She said the chances are only about 5% of that being the case. However, 5% chance enough for the fire department to keep their apparatus outside the station houses and their people on high alert.
You never know. It's always smart to be prepared. This here is some video sent in to us from a viewer. This comes from Palm Desert. It's a surveillance camera video, and you can see the jolting there at the beginning of the video, if they'll loop that one more time. Also, we got some reaction from around town of people that felt the quake.
We were exercising up at the La Quinta Resort and Club outdoors, and we were in a little enclosed area, and we could feel it and hear it. It sounded just like a truck that was going to come right through the windows.
I was thinking, I was sure it was an earthquake, and then I wondered about the kids and if they felt anything. And I stood under a doorway because I thought that seemed like a good idea.
Well, it's not often. I don't think it was that strong, and it didn't last for long, but maybe it's, you never know whether it's a sign of things to come.
That is true. We want to reiterate, we did talk to a seismologist with the USGS who said that this could have been a foreshock. Only about a 5% chance, though, that something bigger is to come. And in fact, we said, how big is big if something was to come? She said only about a 1% chance of that if something bigger was to come, that it would be more than a 5.7.
Right, and that's because this quake wasn't on a major fault line. It wasn't on the San Andreas. In fact, it wasn't even on the San Jacinto, though a little offspring of the San Jacinto fault is where this has been reported. And again, a 4.7 earthquake struck just before 10 o'clock this morning. We have got our folks all out in the field gathering information and bringing us all you need to know for our evening newscast.
That's right. We have a crew up in Anza gathering information from that area where this earthquake was based out of. Also, we've got a crew talking to earthquake specialists, disaster preparedness specialists. We will have everything you need to know about this earthquake, what is to come from it, and what you need to do to be safe. And that is all coming up tonight at 5 and 6 right here on KMIR6.
Yeah, and if you have any video of the earthquake itself, please email it to us at news@KMIR6.com. Or if you'd like to just share your story, give us a call, 760-340-1623. Of course, you can always go to our Facebook page. I'm told we have a Twitter account, so you can try that as well.
All right, stick with us throughout the day. We're going to bring you live updates throughout the day, and we will be here on hand in case there is one more earthquake. Again, stick with us today.